Stream Elements said Ye Old Nerdcast is now live. Streaming just chatting, late start again, just hanging out. Foking, you upset high waving hand emoji.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdcast. It is Devin, broadcasting as always live from an undisclosed location in the center of Texas on another late start Thursday evening. How's everybody doing out there? Yo, what's up? Foking you up? Welcome back to the stream. How you doing? Hope you're having a good night.
Street corner Becky just redeemed. Get ready.
See my dick.
Yo, what's up, Vince? Welcome back. How you doing? How are you tonight? Oh man, I have nothing on the agenda at all. Figured that would be a pretty good time for me to like take a break from playing a game and just kind of chill.
Street corner Becky said, "Yo, tired per usual, lol."
You've been like this is about your new bedtime, I think. You've got a brand new bedtime now. Oh man, today was a day.
Street corner Becky said, "Have an interview Tuesday for a part-time bread stocking job."
Oh, and bread stocking. That's
Street
very
corner
specific.
Becky said, "Yeah, but I wanna hang out."
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Don't let me break your new sleeping schedule, though. Don't let me be the one that gets you back on the bad path. I don't want to be I'm not a bad influencer over here. Well, I am actually, but I need to fix my sleep schedule. I woke up early today. I had to because I had somebody coming over to fix my dishwasher. And
Street corner Becky said, "Not I ended up breaking it last night and went to bed at 4 a.m.
Oh, well, never mind then. But yeah, I had somebody come over this morning. They said their window to come over was between 8 and 11, but they called me and woke me up at like 7 a.m. or a little after 7. So I woke up then, and I've been up since, basically. That sucked. And I had to clean a shit ton of dishes by hand while my dishwasher's currently running right now. I have incredibly hard water out here, and I guess the issue was my filter was basically just a solid rock. So I had to boil it in water and vinegar for like hours and then scrub what I could off. I ended up going to Home Depot and getting some lime scale remover and putting it on that. I used some gentle, I didn't want to, use something that was super corrosive to the filter itself, but I found some gentle lime remover and put it on there, softened it up a little more, scrubbed it with the steel wool. Got a decent amount off, but there was still a lot on there. But I decided, fuck it. I bought some dishwasher cleaner to clean the dishwasher itself, and I've been running it downstairs. So hopefully I could use my dishwasher again. But I had to take all the dishes that were in there out. I washed them all by hand. I had a bunch of other dirty dishes that I had to wash by hand. So I've been doing that. But also in the middle of my day, and this is good. This is a good thing. My nieces are visiting from Oklahoma. They're staying with their grandparents, my parents, obviously, for the week. And today, I took off work for a little bit to go meet them at a Korean shopping center here that's got a lot of really cool stores. And the conveyor belt sushi place. That was the whole thing. They both are into Japanese culture, anime, that sort of stuff. And there are some great stores over there that I knew they would like. So I've made plans with my mom and my nieces that was supposed to be like, okay, I'm gonna get off work a little early. I'll meet you all there. We'll walk around through the stores, I'll get them some stuff maybe, then we'll go get sushi. I'll treat everybody to sushi at Kura. And that was gonna be the plan. But then as I'm about to leave, my mom was like, "We're just waiting in the car." And I'm like, "Waiting in the car? Like, why? Like, what?" And then she told me "Oh, they got there at 1 and they already went to all the stores. So now they're just waiting for me so they can eat sushi." And I'm like, that's completely counter to what the day was supposed to be. Like, you already did all this stuff and now and now we're gonna, I wanted to eat sushi later. I didn't want to go there just to eat the sushi. I wanted to shop around and do all that stuff and, introduce them to the stores and, see how excited they were and all that. But, she did all that without me. And now they're just waiting in the car, probably hungry. Probably they've been there for hours at that point. So that really annoyed me. That really just annoyed me. I was like, okay, so basically your plan, I thought the plan was we're all going to meet up and then we're going to have a day and eat some sushi and that's it. But I guess her plan was we're going to do this shit without you. And if you feel like joining us at the tail end, be our guest. So that was kind of annoying. I was actually a little upset that I missed out on a lot of the store stuff. But, you know, we did get sushi. I made my nieces eat squid. They were not happy about that, but that was funny. But they had a good time though, so I'm glad for that at least. So, in between work and
Haunted Taco 12 said squid isn't too bad.
Yo, what's up, Haunted Taco? Welcome back to the stream. How you doing? Squid, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan of squid or octopus or eel. But I gave them their choice. I was like, you could pick something, and they didn't settle on anything. So the squid
Haunted
came
Taco
down the
12
line.
said, "Heya, Devin and chat. I hope you all are kicking well. Gonna be mostly lurking because tiredness is the looming factor today."
Fair enough. I'm doing okay. I mean, I definitely get the tiredness vibes. But I'm doing all right. Ooh, boy. Anyways, yeah, in between all of that was in between the
Haunted Taco 12 said it's been one of those weeks that feel like it's been a month since Monday.
You're right about that for sure. Did I put this thing here? I thought I
Geographically speaking,
did. No,
South.
shut up.
Haunted_Wisp said I've been sleeping for a day and a half.
Sleeping for a day and a half. Yo, what's up, Wisp? Welcome back to the stream. Seems like you're either well rested or you are overcome by fatigue. I don't know which one that is, but glad you're here. That's a lot of sleep. When I get too much sleep like that,
Wisp said because fuck getting out of bed.
when I get too much sleep, I just spiral into a whirlpool of fatigue.
Haunted Taco 12 said I'm a recovered insomniac. I could never sleep for that amount of time.
I'm not even recovered. I'm just an insomniac. Which is why I was a little upset that I actually ended up going to bed relatively early last night.
Haunted
Just to be
Taco
woken
12
up
said
early.
I'm good for 5 to 6 hours at most.
That's usually what I get, about 5 to 6. If I hadn't have been woken up an hour earlier, I probably would have gotten about 6 or 7 last night.
Street Corner Becky said 6 to 7 here.
But I'm running on maybe 4 hours right now. And this is like consistent. Like usually the way it works for me, I'll get 4 or 5 hours all throughout the week because, you know, I got to wake up for work despite staying up late. But then when the weekend hits, I don't know if the body works this way, but I feel like I catch up on my sleep. Although I haven't been doing that lately. I've been getting not great sleep on the
Becky
weekends.
said the bread thing is a local vendor to the Walmarts around here. David 28373828 said go feed your kids broken heart emoji. 2.001 said you too old for TS broken heart emoji. Broken
The
heart
fuck is
emoji.
going on
Broken
here?
heart emoji. Broken heart emoji. Freed out my mind 123 said WSG Incorporated. Street Corner Becky asks, are these bots?
I think these might be bots. Let me see.
Beast on the track.
Alright. I don't know what all this unk shit is about. But where's my... Here it is. Oops. could have made this UI a little bit more intuitive. I can't even fucking see what I just... Okay, there it is. Fucking I banned them all. Nice. Thank you. I also just turned on, for a little while, not permanently, but for a little while, I turned on followers only chat. Thank you for the ban hammer there. I don't know what's going on with that. You were getting those same type of comments on that one YouTube video? Wait, I was? What video? I don't remember. I don't remember getting comments like that on a video. You poured and blocked them weirdos. Remember something about Unk and we talked about it on Discord? Oh, well, you know, that was a little different. That was a little different. Like, these guys were, I don't know what the fuck they were going on about. Seeing kids or some stupid shit. But the guy on the YouTube video was just responding to my video in like a positive way. But like, you know, addressed me as Unk. Which, you know, it's not false. I am Unk. At Unk age. I'm literally Uncle. I mean, I was just talking about hanging out with my nieces today, so they were talking about you selling eights or something. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that's all about, but hey, it's Twitch. You know what? Honestly, it's kind of remarkable that I guess it's taken this long before some weirdo spam raid happened or whatever that was. What does Unk imply? It's just short for uncle. Just means you're old. Unk could mean uncle or old head. Yeah, I think old head is a little different than uncle though. Old head is what you become after you're Unk. If I get my order if I get my order right. Old head is older than Unk. Yeah, that's what I don't know the exact hierarchy, but I do believe that old head is older than Unk. I'm not old head yet, but I'm getting there. I'm close. But there is some blend. Friend rated someone 2 years older than me, and guy I was talking to Discord says, dude rated a boomer. I felt lost. 2 years younger than me, I meant. 2 years younger than you, and they called him a boomer. I mean, yeah. I mean, boomer, it's been some years now, but quite a while ago, boomer transcended the age kind of thing. Boomer is like a state of mind at this point. People cannot just be cool. It's crazy. Well, you know, some people think that it's real cool to like bombard some random ass channel, huh? I don't even know what this means. What is this? Oh wait, what? It just popped something up. What is this? Oh, shield mode, huh? What just happened? That was weird. What happened on your guys' what happened on your guys' end? I'm clicking buttons over here. That's what's happening. Oh, Oh, okay. There's this button. All right, one of these buttons says clear chat from view for non-mods. So I guess if your chat reset, that's probably because I clicked this shield mode button. Interesting. I didn't know. I just saw this over in my widgets. I didn't know shield mode was a thing. Okay, well, interesting. Now I know. Should I have an encounter like that again, I'll just click on shield mode and instead of fumbling around in the chat settings like the old head boomer I am. Okay, this is interesting. I'll have to pour through this shield mode stuff a little bit more later. You have one decent semi-viral short and all the weirdos come out. I doubt that this is from that. I doubt it. I mean, I think it's more probably on the order of the fact that I'm streaming and just chatting right now, rather than some esoteric game that people have never heard of. Which reminds me, you know, I'm probably going to end up watching this video here in a second, because I saw this came across my feed and I wanted to watch it, but I was like, you know, maybe I'll save that for the stream. But there is also that other game I bought during the summer sale, Gris, that I am curious about. Gris. So, I don't know. Maybe a little later. Shield mode can be good, but it can also be quite overzealous. It was either a group of people that saw just a guy to try and harass, or they're just bots. I mean, the screen names indicate to me that they were probably more on the order of bots. So... must be a boring evening for them? Well, probably, but that doesn't mean it's got to be a boring evening for us. So, I saw this video, and I was like, you know what? We have been talking a lot about Sega in this stream lately, particularly when I was playing Shining Force 3, which I need to get back to. I'm really close to beating Scenario 3. But, you know, we were talking about Sega and all of that, our disappointments with them, or at least mine. And I don't know if, like, the microphone on my phone picked it up and then sent it over to YouTube and they shoved this video over my algorithm. But, this video here popped up and I was like, all right, I have to watch this. Because, again... as I mentioned last time, just because Sega doesn't make games that I myself care about, doesn't mean they aren't killing it. Like, we saw all of the games that they released that have gotten overwhelmingly positive reviews, so they're doing something. People are liking it. It's a different brand of Sega than what I grew up with, but I'm curious about this video now. Reviving Sega will be the greatest achievement in my career. You still haven't beaten that game yet? Game is a lifetime log. It's three games. Scenario 1, 2, and 3. I beat 1 and 2, and I'm in the middle of 3. Like, each one of those what did we say, Vince? They capped at about 32 hours long. So I'm like at least 64 hours completed, and I'm probably about 15 hours into the last one. So, they're pretty lengthy. They're pretty lengthy, or the whole thing is pretty lengthy rather. But I got distracted because of the summer sale. Because when I was like, all right, fine, I'll buy Suikoden. Suikoden is another classic RPG series that I spent a shit ton of my time in high school playing right alongside Shining Force 3. So it makes sense that the one thing that's going to knock me off course for Shining Force 3 is Suikoden. Yeah, about that, probably around 100 hours for all three combined or close to it.
Movie industry is tough. Look at video game industry. I mean, the base is still expanding. So while it's getting tougher, maybe for console, but game business overall still growing. I mean, opportunity to reach more and more people. Now I'm rejoined Sega. I'm working on reviving Sega. I think I want to say this is going to be my greatest achievement in my career.
Okay, he's saying he wants to revive Sega, as
Hello
in he
and
doesn't
welcome to
think
the
it
Game
is
Business
revived.
Show with me, Christopher Dring. I'm here at Sega's offices in Burbank, California, to meet with Shuji Utsumi, the CEO of Sega Europe and Sega America, where we're going to talk about all sorts of things: Sega's futures, Sega's past, Utsumi's own career, and indeed what we can make of the latest trends and goings on in the video games industry. Enjoy. Hello, Utsumi-san. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your career, because you've had quite the career.
I really didn't pick up much on the sale. I bought Death Stranding and a missing DLC for RimWorld. Do you like Death Stranding? I don't know if this is like, because I don't follow, I'm not a part of the Hideo Kojima fan club, even though I don't dislike him or anything. I just don't follow him that way. But I get the sense that it might be a little, I don't know. I didn't like that game. I didn't like Death Stranding. I appreciate it for its auteur nature and the heavy influence on Twin Peaks that it had. But I just didn't think it was that good. I'm trying not to buy anything at Amazon during Sucker Day. Well, you're looking at a sucker because I bought some stuff. I bought some things that I desperately needed, such as a second litter box. Only thing I bought was Day of Defeat Source, an old ass FPS for $2. A few friends play it. Okay, cool. I've never played it. I own it on both PlayStation and now PC, but I've yet to play it. Why did you buy it twice and not play it once? RimWorld, on the other hand, I absolutely love that game.
Career in video games and actually entertainment. You were at PlayStation, then at Sega during the Dreamcast era, which is my favorite era. You had stints at Disney and Warner Music as well. Looking back at all that, what would you say have been your biggest achievements?
Well, I've been in this business roughly 30 years already. My first encounter in the video game business was to write the business plan for video game business / PlayStation business for Sony.
Wow.
And I was the first two employees at Sony Computer Entertainment of America. And during that time, there are so few people. So I was playing like a corporate guy to third-party relation to product acquisition. So I started up the Sony.
So what, this guy was
localization group, producing group for acquisition. And then I'm proud that Ridge Racer bundle was my deal. So for the PlayStation launch.
Wow.
It says Richard Bundo.
Then,
Come on. All right, YouTube subtitles, you're getting a little racist here. He didn't say Richard Bundo. He said Ridge Racer Bundle. He said the Ridge Racer Bundle was his idea. He's proud of that. Which he should be. It's the reason why my brother bought a PlayStation when it was launched, because it came with Ridge Racer. So all he had to do was buy Tekken, and he had 2 games. I guess this guy, I didn't realize this guy was was one of the instrumental key figures in the PlayStation launch. I have Death Stranding on Epic, never played it, got it free. It's a decoration. They are auto caption and always awful. Yeah, I know. Is this guy like the Kaz Hirai of Sega? Well, Kaz Hirai is like, I guess Kaz Hirai is like the clone of this guy. This guy sounds, he's basically saying he's the original. It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. He was the OG, and Kaz Hirai bit his style.
Afterwards, I joined Sega, right? And then I was in charge of first party of a Dreamcast product, including Sonic Adventure, Space Channel 5, Crazy Taxi, Just a Radio.
It's my favorite.
So yeah, I mean, I've been proud of it, but I don't want to say that's the greatest achievement in my career. Afterwards, I was with Disney. I've been doing Kingdom Hearts deal. And also, I started my own company with my partner, Tetsuya Mizuguchi, doing Luminous and Meteos game. At that time, Luminous was #1 Metacritics on PSP, and then Meteos was #1 critics, figures for Nintendo DS. But I want to say,
Oh, gee, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, so good. I've never played 2, but I did like 1 a lot. Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 also great. I think I've only played a little bit of the first one, but not even enough to really say that I played it. The Kingdom Hearts series is something that just completely blew past me without me even glancing at it. Maybe at some point in the future I'll give those games a shot, but they never really appeal to me. Sonic Adventure 2 is the greatest game ever made. Well, damn, I guess I missed out on the greatest game ever made. I thought that first one was awesome, though. What happened with the Sonic 2006 then? Jeez.
Getting back to your question, now I'm rejoining Sega, and I'm working on reviving Sega, and I think I want to say this is going to be my greatest achievement in my career.
Greatest.
When was this recorded? He wants to revive Sega, huh? 9 days ago. Operation get into this guy's inbox and demand he revive Shining Force. You want to revive Sega, buddy? All right, here's the plan. We're going to dig up a lot of those old Saturn gems, and we're going to do re-releases. We're going to do remakes where it makes sense. We're going to do brand new re-envisionings. We're going to do Shining Force. We're going to do Shining the Holy Ark. We're going to do Burning Rangers. We're going to do Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Achievement is still to come.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk Sega then, because actually it feels like there's been a bit of a good run. There's been some interesting hits and in the movies as well. It's been a busy year, actually, for Sega. What are you finding that's working for you at the moment? What have been your biggest recent successes at Sega?
Yeah, there is a series of good incidents coming up, the good hit from, of course, Sonic, thanks to the movie, and also we are reviving Persona very well, and also Yakuza is like a Dragon series getting to be really good. So I would say generally, the reviving Japan studio is constantly helping us compared to the past, better, results.
What's caused that revival in Japan? What's the cause of it? 'Cause it's not just Sega. It seems to be happening across the whole of.
Yeah, for some reasons, when I rejoined Sega, the Japanese studio is somehow paying attention to the domestic market, like a Japanese market more, even though Sega is such a beloved company among Western audience. They were, somehow paying very small attention to the.
Is there a big resurgence? This is just a blind spot for me. Is there a big resurgence in Japanese game development? I don't know. I guess maybe, but it doesn't really. I mean, what do I only ever really hear about Persona, honestly. And I mean, maybe the games all kind of blur for me. Bayonetta, Japanese game experience. The Japanese game development. I mean, this is Google AI overview, so take it with a giant grain of salt. The Japanese game development scene is experiencing a resurgence with a renewed focus on appealing to both domestic and international audiences. Revival is driven by a combination of factors, including a shift in development strategies, the popularity of new consoles, and the rise of indie game development. The decline and revival. Oh, this is a fucking Reddit post. Why are you referencing a Reddit post, man? What the fuck is going on here? What is Geek Reply? Over the last handful of years, one of the biggest and most original Nirvana, Persona 5, Guardian, The Last Guardian, Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Bloodborne, Dark Souls. I guess From Software also makes a big part of that. I guess it's probably a combination of Persona and Atlas / Sega and From Software. Probably the biggest components to that. And Nintendo, of course, but you know, Nintendo is so globally ubiquitous, it barely even registers as like Japan only sort of thing. Capcom, maybe. I mean, they're always gonna have the fighting tournament contingent of people. Outside of that, was Dragon's Dogma that big of a hit? It really bummed a lot of people out when it dropped, but I don't know if it had sustained success. Looking through a list of best-selling. I mean, they have Resident Evil. Yeah, you're right. They do have Resident Evil. I guess that's true. They do have Resident Evil. Looking through a list of best-selling video games from the 7th generation of consoles, if you remove Nintendo, many would notice a distinct lack of Japanese games. This void in the games industry seemed to span through the 10-year life cycle of the PS3, Xbox 360, and the then current generation of PCs. This sudden lack seemed odd. After all, the 5th and 6th generations, not including Xbox, contained a healthy mix of both Japanese and Western. Okay. As pointed out back in 2014 by a former game dev and journalist, James Milk, one of the reasons why Nippon Games struggled so much was due to the appearance and ensuing success of the Xbox. Microsoft, who already had an entire wealth of PC technology on their side, were able to integrate it into their consoles. Although Sony's PS1 and PS2 had already had much support from Western developers, their technology was more arcade-based. This meant that many Western developer teams chose to cast their lot with the Xbox, being already more familiar and comfortable with developing games on PC technology. That's also the reason why when Sega developed the Dreamcast, they chose to use they chose to use like Windows CE as its core operating system, and they used the Power VR. They used Power VR chipset. NEC's Power VR chipset, which was at the time a rival, maybe not a super successful rival, but it was a rival to 3DFX. Dead Rising and Yakuza. Yakuza is Sega. Dead Rising, is that Capcom? I still wouldn't. I don't know. Is Dead Rising that big? Monster Hunter, I know, it has a really big niche following, but I don't know if I would put Dead Rising and is that a part? I mean, when I think of like, I guess maybe Persona is kind of it. I guess I shouldn't shit on those. I guess Dead Rising and Monster Hunter are probably on the same level as a Persona. I would put those both below Yakuza. I mean, shit, there's a Yakuza Amazon Prime TV series now. And far below the Dark Souls games. Like, at this point, I think that Dark Souls is up there. It's starting to get up there with, like, Call of Duty. Like, they drop one of those things, and literally everyone is on top of it. This is a big, interesting article. Maybe I'll go back to it and actually read it. Although I don't know. I guess there are all sorts of publications out there who probably don't seem the most reputable on its face, but probably just because, you know, it's hard to get recognition when you're one of the little people. My apologies, Geek Reply. Maybe I'll finish reading your article before I immediately slander you. Although it is kind of weird still that Google's AI thing, its top reference in response to my query was this. By the way, Figment 2 is currently free on Epic. I grabbed Figment 1 last week. My favorite FromSoft game is Old. It's an old horror game from the 2000s. I mean, doesn't narrow it down. Doesn't narrow it down at all. What did they do? Was it that Clock Tower game? Also, some game called Skyrocket is free, and Civ 6 will be free next week. Ooh, I don't know. I think I have Civ 7. I don't know if I think I have Civ 6. I think I have Civ 6. Kuon. Oh, okay. I didn't know they did Kuon. I've seen it around. When I worked at GameStop, I've seen that cover, but I've never bothered trying to play it. To me, it kind of looked like a cheap knockoff of Fatal Frame, so I just kind of ignored it.
These kind of audience. So we change, hey, the kind of attitude to, let's say, hey, the whole gamers in the world are our audience. So in the system-wise, we decide to have, Japanese and also a global title, international title launching at the same time. And then having whole platform, including PC, at the same time. And then, trying to prepare marketing document, whatever, for the international market at the same time. Mm-hmm. So once, in the past, we just Japan first, video game first, then moving into, global market. So by changing the system, studios decided to think, we have to prepare in the early stage. So that somehow, help their thinking process to develop a game.
Because it's obviously the home of video games, really, okay. And it's wonderful to see. I think the Game Awards, there was all these Japanese games and just doing so well. Well, I'm going to go back to the question asked about Sega and recent successes, but perhaps the flip of that question is, what are you struggling with at the moment? Where are your big challenges?
Well, we have many challenges. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest challenges is the GOS business for us. The game companies with a strong record.
The what business?
Tend to have for us. Biggest challenge is the GOS business for us. The game companies with a strong record tend to have strong GOS business global. Console/PC standalone business is getting to be better, but we are still working on making that GOS business global. So that's one of the big challenges.
The subtitles say gas business, and it sounds like he's saying gas business, but I don't know if unless that's an acronym for something I don't know, I don't think he means gas business. I don't think Sega's creating gas stations or refining petrol. I don't know what he means. What am I mishearing when he says that? This thing is called live. This section of the video is called Live Service Challenges. Is he saying SaaS? Software as a service? He might be saying SaaS instead of gas.
We are taking a shift to transmedia business, which is like, outside the video game. We are trying to strengthen that business through licensing. And also working with the movie folks and TV folks, music folks, to expand the audience, having a deeper engagement to fans. So that business, it is going well, but still, we just strengthening the efforts. So these are the current big challenges.
I'll ask about the transmedia stuff in a moment, but so the GAS, the sort of games as a service stuff.
Oh, he was saying gas. Oh, it is an acronym. Games as a service. Oh, brother. Oh, boy. Is that what he's going to shift Sega towards? Making fucking Fortnites and Avengers? Marvel's Avengers? It's the first time I've ever heard games as a service. Gas. I mean, it's still software. It's all SaaS.
What are you doing there to try and? Because that's a really difficult market. It's a really competitive market.
Exactly, that's a challenge. That's why I call it challenge. So for example, we acquired a company called Rovio, Angry Bird company, and they have deep knowledge of global mobile business. And they have very strong IP like Angry Bird. So we somehow feel like the fit between the companies like Rovio and Sega is good. And then actually we are working closely to have Sonic mobile game working closely with Rovio right now.
Oh, boy. So, the plan to revive Sega is to get the Angry Birds guys to make a mobile Sonic game as a mobile live service Sonic game. He must have some data that I am not privy to. There must be like one, and that drives a lot of the decisions around these sorts of things. Like there may be like one or two games in that space that just make billions of dollars on the mobile circuit. Some mobile live service game that just makes billions of dollars. And then like the number 3 game in that space makes like maybe $12. So they're going to invest all their money to try to steal away the billions of dollars that goes towards 1 or 2 games, which is honestly what live services is all about. There's only so much that people are willing to spend in the live services ecosystem that a lot of those games just cannibalize. A lot of the smaller games cannibalize one another. It's real hard for something like Marvel Rivals to come out and like make a noticeable impact, versus an Overwatch or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily call that a winning strategy, but I don't know, maybe this guy's got an ace up his sleeve. Angry Bird is not the win he thinks it is. 2010 called. Yeah, I mean that's kind of my first reaction too, but I don't know, man. Look, we're all unks and boomers in here. What are the Gen A kids playing? What are they doing? They play Roblox, right? Is that what he's going towards? He's going to do like a Sega Roblox? Like someone's buying these games to the point where it's making guys like him go, "Hey, we need to lean into this." So even if it's not our prerogative, I guess it's enough to make him want to steer the business in that direction. I wouldn't say that's a great plan for reviving Sega, but hey, you know what? I could be wrong.
And then we are giving them to have access to our IPs, including Sonic, to come up with nice, welcoming GAS titles.
It's interesting, obviously, because Sega used to be, in many ways, one of the pioneers in this space with games like Phantasy Star and I remember Football Manager Online and all these sort of things. It's always been there, but it's obviously, these big live service games are so big now. Well, I'll ask about the Sonic movie, obviously, because he's a movie star now, almost more than a games icon. How have you found translating the success of the movies though back to the games? Is that have you been successful there? Do you think?
I mean, the movie success really giving us a nice impact to video game business. The movie definitely expand the fan base. So now Sega is, as you just mentioned, getting me a star game. So yeah, the movie business.
I heart the Sonic movies, especially 3. I still haven't seen a single one of them. I need to put those on my list. I haven't seen a single one. And I still haven't seen the Mario movie either. I'm whiffing on my video game movies.
Business really help us our business on the video game side also.
Lots of companies have different approaches. Some people do lots of activity around the movies to promote the games, and some people sort of let it breathe itself. And it's really, I think we're all still, it seems some companies are still trying to work that out. But you've been doing the Sonic movies for a while now. It's we're on to the third one. I guess a lot of people look at the Sonic movie and what you've done there as almost an example for the rest of the industry at the moment.
Right.
It's not really a question, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting is, I mean, when I just started to get involved in the video game business, I picked up the game called Crash Bandicoot. And then actually we are asking some of the movie, studios if they are interested in that property into the movie. But I was treated like, hey, this is like, video game was like a toy business. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't really take it serious. And then at that time...
That's funny that would be the response. The video games are a toy business because, like, so many blockbuster movies were initially conceptualized as vehicles to sell toys. Like, He-Man was created specifically to sell toys. I mean, G.I. Joe was created to sell toys, and they didn't make movies, but the cartoon was certainly a profitable venture. Or there are all sorts of movies that started off as like, hey, we need to sell a bunch of toys. The idea that they would turn away Crash Bandicoot because it was a toy, they probably missed a mark. But back then they didn't really know how to make movies about games, so maybe it was a dodge bullet for both. I'm glad they didn't make a Crash movie back then. A 90s one wouldn't look good. Yeah, it would have been awful.
The big movie is getting to the video game business. Like, a whole Disney, character-based movie was, brought into video game, during that time. Now, game IP is getting to the, movie business. I'm translating the video game is getting to be the culture, finally. And then that big culture is moving into the movie. So I see the really big shift of the industry. I'm really happy about.
I was on BBC Radio a couple of weeks ago around the Minecraft movie. And the presenter of that show said to me, is the games industry queuing up at Hollywood's door to get games turned into movies? And I replied, it was a beautiful setup. I replied with, no, it's the other way around. The movie industry is queuing up
exactly
to the games industry. And it reminds me, I spoke to Tom Kalinske last year around talking about the age rating situation in the 90s. And he was talking about how the movie industry wouldn't help with the age rating situation because they were like, they saw us as this toy industry. And I thought it was quite how times have changed. There are so many different Sega games. So there's Sonic, and then there's Football Manager, there's Total War, and there's Persona. How would you describe Sega's identity in 2025?
It's it's still hard for me to see Persona as a Sega game because to me that's an Atlas game. And Sega purchased Atlas, sure, but the series started off with Atlas being its own independent thing. It's kind of the same as like it would be like Neverwinter Nights. That's a BioWare game, but that's BioWare pre-EA. But you wouldn't really call Neverwinter Nights an EA series. You would refer to it as a BioWare series. They made 2 of those games, right? There's a Neverwinter Nights too. But yeah, so that's kind of the way that I feel about Persona. Like, I don't really... maybe it's not fair for me to say this, but I don't really credit Sega for Atlus's creation there?
Good question, because I'm trying to somehow, figure out what would be the best way. But, I see all these kind of studios. I mean, I was with the music industry for a while. So I see these kind of, group of people like a label, football manager, persona, yakuza, like a dragon. I mean, all these, production line, like a label, kind of, different kind of art direction, attitudes, and also, culture. But what's really common is
It's a very
attitude
dystopian way
toward
to
the
view
quality, and
view,
also attitude toward
commercialized
the kind
art.
of personality and creativity. We encourage them to be somehow in any, IPs, pushing the kind of edge, trying to be something new, trying to provide the audience new simulation. So that's the kind of value that we like to have a common. Sega, I guess, is the one to always somehow empower the gamers to really stimulate and challenge their norm. So that's how I see Sega.
So you see Sega. You've talked in the past about wanting Sega to take more risks, but game costs are so high and they're continuing to rise. How do you balance that pressure amongst the desire and the ambition to take bigger bets? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, Sega is unique in a way that we have many IPs and many studios dealing with the different kind of IPs. In a way, to me, like a management point of view, it's like a portfolio. So we have some solid, business line, taking less risk. I mean, like, Sonic, of course, production base is getting bigger, but somehow you can count on solid return. But some other IPs, we trying to be wild. It's higher risk, but potentially higher return. So it's like IP portfolios while having a common infrastructure. And then, we are having a transmedia and also strong title that gives you a longer tail. So having a high quality game is in the end ending up giving you a more stable revenue in the future. So that's the kind of attitude that we are having.
I guess as well, if you deliver a game that has that quality, you can do movies and all of those sort of expansions like you've done with Sonic.
And then Sega is a kind of getting attention from, this Hollywood, group of people. So providing right product, I mean, the game business, you get attention. So that's our belief right now.
You're continuing to invest in older IP as well. Thankfully, you mentioned some from the Dreamcast era that I'm excited to hear come back. But how careful do you have to be to ensure Sega doesn't just become a nostalgic retro business?
Yeah. I mean, that's another really good question, because this is something I'm always talking to studio developers. While we caring for lore of the product, we need to be innovative at the same time to really attract the new audience. Luckily, nowadays, everything around 2000, year 2K, is getting to be hip again.
Yeah.
It's a good tailwind.
That's true. That's definitely a true sentiment. But it's interesting to hear like this idea that you don't want to be a nostalgic company or anything like that, when like their greatest competitor or their once greatest competitor, Nintendo, almost exclusively operates in that space. Like, I don't think Nintendo goes out of their way to like push nostalgia on people, but they definitely lean on their nostalgic brands a lot more than Sega does. Like, they lean on Nintendo or on Mario, on Zelda, on Pokemon, and other types of Donkey Kong, even Mario Kart, of course. Like, they are much less. They worry a lot less, and that doesn't mean they won't do new stuff. I mean, they brought out Splatoon, but they seem to worry a lot less about being viewed as like a nostalgic company or anything like that. And they're focused more on, hey, if we have the IPs, we may as well use them. Like, we could create new stuff, but then that new stuff, if people like it, that's just going to become a part of the nostalgia. Like Smash Brothers is nostalgic for some people. Like, when did the first Smash Brothers come out? That was a GameCube game, wasn't it? Like, to me, that doesn't even register. To me, that doesn't even register as nostalgia in my head. Oh yeah, Smash Bros. That was fucking N64. Holy shit, even older. 1999. Okay. I mean that's definitely reaching back to the nostalgia hole, but look, he's saying like, hey, games from the year 2000 are becoming hip again, like it's a good tailwind and blah blah blah. It's like, well, fucking Smash Bros was pre-2000. It was 1999. And Nintendo never stopped making those games, man. Like, and it's as big a series as you're going to find on from any first party developer. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like there was no reason for Sega to let a lot of its franchises languish. And there's no fear, there should be no fear in becoming like a nostalgia company, because nobody views Nintendo that way. Smash Bros, I guess, has been coming out for fucking 26 years now. 26 years of Smash Brothers. But nobody thinks about it in nostalgic terms. It's just Smash Brothers. It's, there's going to be a new one. What new characters are going to be in it? Is Batman going to be in it? Maybe. So like that's kind of the thing that bugs me about this weird mentality against leaning into popular IPs from, or even, and not like super popular, but just IPs that you have that, saw success back in the day. Like, there's nothing wrong with dipping back into that. You have it available, and if there's a market for it, if there's a product market fit, then why not? Like, you're artificially pigeonholing yourself into doing something that may or may not make sense for your brand. Like, Sega had a brand. Like, Sega had a brand that was very, like, tied into a lot of these franchises that made them feel cool and edgy. It was like, Nintendo games were for kids, but Sega games were for grown-ups. They were for like teenagers. If you were a baby, you were playing Nintendo games. But like, if you were a cool kid smoking cigarettes in the bathroom, skipping class to smoke cigarettes in the bathroom, you were playing Sega games. That's kind of like the vibe that a lot of Sega games had. Streets of Rage and shit like that. And of course, obviously, titles like Mortal Kombat having blood on the Genesis and being censored on the Super Nintendo. But like, you have that kind of brand association that you just let languish for no real good reason. Like, a part of it was, it started with, the failure of the Sega Saturn, and just wanting to put the failure of the Saturn behind them as quickly and as fervently as possible. So they move on to the Dreamcast, and they get some good stuff on the Dreamcast too, but they do it at the expense of stuff that, could be cool to bring over to the Dreamcast. Why not make a Dragon Force game on the Dreamcast? That could have gotten a lot of people excited. Why not make a sequel to Burning Rangers on the Dreamcast? Or, even just they made like a Sega Genesis compilation CD for the Dreamcast, but no Saturn one? Why not? There's a bunch of people that bought the Dreamcast. Dreamcast was a really well-selling system, but they either never played a Saturn or never even heard of a Sega Saturn. That's a whole new potential market if you just bundle those games up right there and be like, hey, these are the Saturn's classics. And then who knows where those franchises go from there. We could be talking about Shining Force 7 right now. But they just let their fruit rot on the vine for some stupid ass reason. And it seems like this is the reason. They just don't want to get pigeonholed into being a nostalgic company, even though they're pigeonholing themselves into not exercising their full library to the scope that they could. And I guess if I was gonna express what Sega's brand represents to me now, as opposed to what it did when I was a kid, right now it just kind of seems like they're a hodgepodge of weird shit. Like, and it's not a bad thing. Like, again, we went through their Steam page and most of their releases have very positive reviews. But there's just, it seems like there's scattershot. There's like no real focus on an identity of any sort. Like, you have Yakuza, you have Persona, you know, you have Total War, you have Alien. It's just a lot of weird, it's just a lot of weird stuff. And like with Nintendo, you at least know generally what you're going to get. You're going to get a Mario game, you're going to get Smash Brothers of some sort, you're going to get Zelda, you're going to get your staples, and then you're going to get something unique. Where that uniqueness comes from, who knows? But you're going to get your staples and you're going to get your unique stuff. And sometimes your staples will deliver unique stuff. And that helps everything downstream. Like when he's talking about, you know, okay, you want to take more risk, but it's hard to do when games cost so much. Well, a part of buttressing against that is being able to release a title that's, you know, has a built-in audience. That's Nintendo's bread and butter. When we talked before about the launch of the Switch 2, I didn't expect the Switch 2 to pop off the way that it did. I was like, who needs a Switch 2? I'm not going to buy a Switch 2. Who wants one? Well, apparently a lot of people wanted one because they sold like hotcakes immediately, you know, and people were fine with spending $80, I guess, for Mario Kart. When you feed your audience the staples like that, it gives you the leeway to take those other risks. That's what Nintendo can do that Sega can't, because they just don't have that mindset. Even though they have more than a big enough back catalog of IP that they can lean into to develop that mindset. So, I don't know. It just seems dumb to me. Like, it seems like he's falling into the same trap that literally every other Sega CEO post Genesis fell into.
For us, but at the same time, that means we need to have some good elements, new elements, including the game. So developers, I believe, they understand, both nostalgic element, lore element, and new element is important. So that it's understanding of the developers of the market is the key.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm excited that you're reinvesting in so many older brands from somebody. You talk about, there's this theory, actually it was a Sega person that said it to me, that nostalgia works about 20, 30 years in the past, right? So anything that's, people who are in their 30s, perhaps in their 40s, they start being nostalgic for their youth, and that's what gets them to go back, which is the reason why I guess early noughties, early 2000s stuff is doing so well at the moment. There were a lot of games, you mentioned Jet Set Radio, for instance, that Sega worked on at the time that I think should have done better, that I think perhaps might do well in a games industry today. So I guess even though it is nostalgic, it is retro, maybe these are things that might have a better chance in today's market.
Right.
It's a very broad question, this one. Where do you see the growth opportunities in video games today?
There are many areas for growth. Emerging countries. Now, everybody plays video game, including mobile games. So in the past, we don't even think about Middle East as a market, but the emerging markets for the video game. And Africa is, of course, India, of course, emerging markets. So that's why we are pushing a global initiative, because distribution-wise, reaching them, their market is not that difficult. It's just digital. So that's one market. And also video game is getting, more mass. So even when we started the PlayStation, we didn't take a female as a kind of seriously a game market. But nowadays, even my mom doesn't play video game, but my sister, of course, play, video games. So, everything is changing. So the market is, generally growing, but core side is getting to be tough because, there are so many games around. So you need to be really have a high standard. So that's really a big challenge.
I've been seeing, and it's easy to say this, 'cause you can look at the games that have been successful, and there'll be lots of games that haven't been successful. But I'm seeing games that have a focus on a specific audience, that if you do a very good job of that, you might end up breaking out and reaching more and more people. We saw that recently with Expedition 33, for instance. And I think this really plays to Sega's strengths, because most of your games are very aimed at a very specific audience.
Right.
You do a very good job of that, and then they reach people who perhaps have never even considered that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really, I'm happy to hear that, because we are targeting some specific audience in a deeper way. You think this is specific, but if it goes deep, then sometimes you have a chance to go bigger. So rather than targeting huge group of audience, we rather target, kind of narrow but deep, and then try to expand from them.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that that's what they're doing when I look at that hodgepodge of releases they usually have. I've heard Expedition 33 is fun. Me too. One of my coworkers was raving about it. Actually, he was raving to me about it during the interview. He was saying he spent a lot of time in it and thought it was awesome. So it is on my list. It's on. It was part of the summer sale, but it was only I think it was 20% off. But it's still marked at $59 or something like that. So it really wasn't that cheap. I'll get it at some point.
We've seen a lot of games do that very well. Well, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 has just launched. Okay. How many games do you?
Well, you're totally 6 games, right?
It's 6.
It's 5, 6 games. Yeah, 3. Launch-wise 3, but we. I don't know how many games we have announced, but there are lots of games coming up.
Yes, you've supported it in a big way, but the console market seems to be going through a bit of a tough moment. How are you feeling about the console market broadly?
Yeah, broadly, since I was, launching member PlayStation, I have a big attachment to console business. And Nintendo has been playing amazing role, and they have achieved a lot of, great contribution to this area. I didn't Switch 1 to be that successful.
Nobody did,
right? But saying so, the big, huge trend, like a PC has a reach of a global market, and mobile, of course, technology base in terms of graphics, it's getting better and better. So I want a console to stay longer, bigger, but the big trend-wise, it's not easy time.
I guess I still see consoles as being that interim, people who may start off on mobile, maybe Angry Birds, maybe Sonic on mobile. Where do they go from? How do we turn them into sort of gamers who want a slightly more, hardcore experience, perhaps? They don't necessarily jump straight to PC. There's that's the role of PlayStation and Nintendo. And
like as I said, game is getting to be a culture. So you play in many different kind of styles. Like sometimes you wanna relax and play in the living room, having a big screen. That's one way. Sometimes you wanna do to kill time, playing mobile games. And PC game, you sit in front of a desk and you want to do something serious, blah, blah, blah. So, game has a lots of way to give you a different way to spend time and enjoy. So among all these kind of activities, console, I want to believe is going to give us a very nice, opportunity to enjoy the game,
I do know. It's just a very tough market at the moment. It's almost unpredictable. We've been here before, though. I was told handheld gaming was over. Then the Switch happened.
Why can't it? There we go. It's because it's so much cheaper to get into PC gaming than it ever was before. It's still pretty expensive if you want to build a decent rig, but here's the thing. What gave consoles their value before was FOMO. It was purely a FOMO based industry. It was, oh, you have a Super Nintendo? Well, you're going to miss out on playing X-Men on the Sega Genesis, which was, my childhood. It's like, oh, you have a Sega Genesis? Well, you're going to miss out on playing Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo. It's like, oh, you've got a PlayStation? Man, well, you know what? I hope you have fun with that, because I'm going to be over here playing Panzer Dragoon Saga or Panzer Dragoon Y on the Saturn. Or, oh, you've got a Saturn. Who has a Saturn? Well, I've got Mario 64. This game is awesome. You get good luck with Bubsy 3D. Like, it was that sort of thing that gave the consoles their juice, because that's literally the basis of the console wars too. It was the title of the smattering of titles that we offer over here is better than the smattering of titles that you offer over there. And for every one thing that you have, we're going to have our version of it. You have Mario, we have Sonic. You have Street Fighter. Well, Street Fighter was on both of them, but you have whatever exclusive fighting game you have over there. We've got whatever exclusive fighting game we have over here. And it was that level of competition that people tied their identity to. And that still happens. Like, people will still tie their identity to like any kind of dichotomy that they can like associate their personal culture with. You see that, honestly, you see that at its starkest in politics. You're Democrat or Republican, but it's literally anything. You're either for McDonald's or you're for Burger King, or you're for Pepsi or you're for Coke. You're for Nintendo or you're for Sega. You're for Marvel or you're for DC. Like, people just like bifurcating themselves that way. And the exclusivity of the old console market made it easier for them to bifurcate themselves that way, and it made it more profitable because people wanted to be a part of a scene. So, like, if a game came out that people were excited about, yeah, people could get it because they hear the hype and they want to play it, and they, like those types of games. But sometimes people bought them because, like, oh, this is the new thing that's gonna, you would always hear like the blank killer. This is the Final Fantasy killer. If it was an RPG on the Saturn, it was a Final Fantasy killer. Or if it was a fighting game on the PlayStation, it was the Virtual Fighter killer. Tekken, the Virtual Fighter killer. It was the killer of your competition was a big selling point for a lot of that stuff. And that doesn't exist anymore, so why bother? Who cares? It's like, oh, Call of Duty's on the Xbox? Well, it's going to be on the PlayStation too, so I'm going to buy it on the PlayStation. I'll play with you on the Xbox. It's Mario, or well, Mario's still going to be a Nintendo sort of thing, which I think is a part of why Switch 2 sales pop off, because those Nintendo games only ever going to be on that thing. But Sonic, you can get a Sonic game virtually anywhere at this point. So I think that's what's killing consoles more than anything else. Because if you can get a game on the PC that's also on a console, why not just get a PC? Yeah, to your point, it's cheaper than in the past, even though it is still pretty expensive. But you get a lot more out of a PC than just a machine to play a game on. Like, you can do all sorts of stuff on your PC. I didn't build this PC initially to play games or to stream. I built these PC to edit videos. I wanted to edit videos and not be constrained by memory or CPU processing power. So I built this specifically so I could like edit a crazy elaborate like 2.5 hour video and render it in, about an hour's worth of time. And it does that. It does that swimmingly. But it also turns out it's pretty good to stream from and play games off of. So, I got a lot of value out of this PC that I probably, wouldn't be able to get out of a console. In fact, I haven't touched my consoles in God knows how long. And I am an OG console player, so I think I'm fully converted to the PC. Hot take, I always hated exclusives. Every new fantasy MMO was the WoW killer. Yeah, every they still say it. Marvel Rivals is the Overwatch killer, or this is that killer. There's always going to be some kind of a killer out there, but the exclusivity of it all is just, it instills that level of both cultural identity in people and also FOMO. It's a brutal combination that can build an army. That can build an army. Like, you're part of the club, and you don't want to feel like you're missing out on being part of the club. So, consoles were the club, and now the club is pretty much franchised out and open to anyone. Star Citizen was the Eve Killer. Lol. Game is still in alpha after 13 years. Oh boy. You know, Lauren had an opportunity to work at that company, but and she was excited for that, but then, like, I kind of explained to her the saga of Star Citizen, and then she kind of lost her interest in that. But it worked out because now, ironically, she's going to be working on the Persona team at Atlas. So I think she starts in August. So she's going to be working for this guy, I guess. I'm going to have to go over there and visit her if, we're still allowed to travel.
It was only 15 years ago. Everyone told me PC gaming was over. So you find these things come around, and it is just very challenging out there, I think, for every games company.
Yeah, but you say so, right?
What if Sega got back into the hardware business? What would that even be like? Could Sega get back into the hardware business? Would it make sense for them to? Their brand is like nothing now. Like, and that's not to say that they don't have value. They do, but the Sega name isn't really associated with anything. I guess Yakuza. If they made a console and made Yakuza exclusive to that, would it be enough to sell systems? I mean, Sonic might for kids, I guess, especially with the movies being as popular as they are. If ever there was an opportunity for Sega to get back into the business of being one of the big players, it would have been when that first Sonic movie came out. They should have dropped, like, actually, you know what? Remember when Nintendo did the little Raspberry Pi NES release? And I think Sega did one with the Genesis too. Like, I think they should do more stuff like that. I wanted them to make one. I wanted them to make a Saturn version of that. Like, there's stuff they can do. There's stuff they can do to really capitalize on their brand and their legacy that I just don't think they're doing. It almost seems, and I know it's weird to say because there was a part of this interview where they talk about going back to their retro games, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set. They only go back as far as the Dreamcast, I guess. Well, that's not true. They released like 1,000 different versions of the Genesis compilation. They just specifically cut out. They want to ignore at all costs the existence of like anything from the Sega CD or 32X or the Saturn. Like, those things in their minds never existed. But they're missing out on a lot of good stuff there. So, they have the value there. They just need to actually do something with it. I don't think it would be cool if they got back in the hardware business, but one of the existing guys would have to die. Like, I mean, the Xbox feels like it's on its way out. And honestly, Xbox should probably just focus on developing for Steam Deck, really. I don't know if their console is going to be worth keeping around. Sony? They keep cooking their books. Every time they talk about sales of the PS5, they mention it in like snakier ways, like units, instead of saying like we sold this many units of the PlayStation 5, they'll be like, we delivered this many units. And it's like, wait, delivered? That just, what does that mean? Is that just how many you sent to like a warehouse somewhere? So you didn't really sell them. They're all sitting in a warehouse collecting dust, but you're counting that as a sell or something, or you're counting that as like a positive movement in your direction. They mess around with the numbers on their book, so who knows about the state of the PlayStation. You know what's worse than the 32X? Virtual Boy. Oh yeah, Virtual Boy was garbage. There's nothing to salvage on that one. I'm willing to bet that there's probably like at least one 32X game that might be worth salvaging. Notable 32X only games. True exclusives. Knuckles Chaotix. Yeah, that would be one that would be neat to kind of bring back. Tempo. Colorful rhythm platformer with music-based levels. I don't remember Tempo. Calibri, a hummingbird shoot 'em up made by the Ico the Dolphin team. Cosmic Carnage. 2.5D futuristic fighter with armor destruction mechanics. I've never even heard of that. Zaxxon's Mother Base. Metal Head. Motocross Championship. I mean, you can always, it's bike racing, dirt bike racing. You can always bring that back. Nobody will know that it's a 32X game, but RBI Baseball 95. Wow, RBI Baseball. Only released on the 32X, part of the RBI series. Now that's Nintendo nostalgia for me, because I only remember playing RBI Baseball on the NES. Shadow Squadron, space flight sim similar to Star Wars TIE Fighter. Spider-Man Web of Fire, the last officially released 32X game. These games, technical 32X exclusives. These games were designed specifically for the 32X, even if some were later ported elsewhere. Doom, the 32X version, a cut down port, only on 32X at first, but inferior to other versions, which is hilarious. I think it's inferior to the Super Nintendo version even. Star Wars Arcade, exclusive at launch, and Virtual Fighter. This version was 32X only, though the franchise existed elsewhere. Yeah, the Sega Saturn. Okay, so there were a small handful of games. Knuckles Chaotix is one that I remember as being a 32X game that I wanted to play, but never got the chance to. Biggest Xbox thing I'm looking forward to is Fable next year, but it will be on PC. Yeah, exactly. So why buy an Xbox? May as well throw that thing in the trash. I feel that Sega would have to choose a cheap SoC and choose whether it's a handheld or standalone. I mean, I feel like the future is moving towards handhelds. 32X is pretty fucking awesome. I play RBI Baseball on my NES emulator a lot. Calibri is a hard bird-themed shmup. Bird theme.
For a while with the music industry is tough, and movie industry is tough. Look at video game industry. The base is still expanding. So while it's getting tougher, maybe for console, but game business overall still growing. Opportunity to reach more and more people. So game business is being evolving with the evolution of the technology. So I'm optimistic about it.
We're all competing for that time, aren't we? And there's just not enough of it.
Yeah.
I had a couple of other questions, but we kind of talked about them, which is talking about the challenges in the market at the moment. We've kind of, I think, covered most of them. Is there any other challenges in the market that you're seeing that you've got any viewpoints on? You have already sort of answered this question.
Well, always there are good titles coming up. There are good entertainment coming up. So building the fan base and then keeping their, fan trust and attention in the longer term is a challenge. So that's why we have a transmedia. We have some other, way to reach the audience. Yeah. Because the game company, entertainment companies are fighting for the time, fighting for the fan base. So that's a challenge.
There's a Sonic game in Roblox. Have I got that right? Yeah. And that's the sort of thing, I guess, is a way of
Yeah.
reaching people, but also keeping them engaged in the franchise.
Right, exactly. So Roblox younger audience, I mean, we want to reach them. Then, ideally, we want them to get in the video game business, the movie side maybe also. So, I mean, having that engagement of the IP is our challenge, and then we are trying to have that kind of design and environment for the IPs these days.
They're all different entry points, right?
Yeah,
You could come in via Roblox, come in via the movies, you could come in from the games.
Could be from
Yeah,
anywhere,
Yeah.
like mobile.
Yeah, and mobile, of course. Well, I'll ask one more question then, is where would you, I often say, where would you like to see yourself in 10 years, but that seems so far away. Where would you like to see Sega in 5 years?
Right. Well, right now, I think Sega is regarded as a video game company. And then I really like to revive, Sega's spirit, like sometime around 2000, sometime around even like the 80s. We are regarded as a very cultural company. Like, I believe Sega is a company to, bring rock and roll if you compare to the music industry. I mean, Tom Karensky, he did a pretty good job, to
He's literally saying what I was saying earlier about the reputation of Sega, its brand identity as being more counterculture, being, more, I guess at the time, more grown up and big kid compared to Nintendo's little kid kind of image or family image. He's literally saying that, getting Sega back to being like a prominent sort of rebellious, maybe not rebellious, but counterculture kind of image, which he seems to have a particular hard on for the 2000 era, which I guess I understand. I guess he worked at Sega back in the Dreamcast heyday, but there's a lot more to it than just that, in my opinion.
really, impress the audience. Hey, Sega is kind of new way of dealing with a video game. So arcade business, we've been really having a mindset of rock and roll, trying to provide always new stuff. Nowadays, we want Sega always trying something new and different, at the same time respecting the old times too, kind of nostalgic audience. So in a way, I want to see 5 years later, we're going to Sega as a kind of IP companies, game companies, with the kind of a mindset that people would feel like, oh, this company is really empowering the gamers.
Wow. Well, I hope so. I think you'll get.
I think it's pretty hard for strictly game developer companies to have that kind of reputation. This is where not being a hardware manufacturer and a first party developer for your own hardware is a detriment, because like if you put out a console, then you are basically saying we are changing the direction of the game industry in its entirety. This is what you will play games on, and what those games look, feel, sound, and act like is dependent upon our vision. Like, this is what we're driving. Microsoft has the ability to do that with the Xbox. Sony has the ability to do that with the PlayStation. Nintendo has the ability to do that with their Switch. And each one does it in a different way to varying degrees of success. Nintendo's super successful at it. I mean, they've gotten a whole lot of people playing games on a handheld that isn't a phone. So much so that they, inspired the Steam Deck even. And on the opposite side, Xbox is not so successful at that sort of thing because, for a variety of different reasons. I think he kind of wants Sega to go back into being like a company of that level of influence and importance within the industry. I don't know if... I'm trying to think. I guess, well, I was going to say Activision may have been the only company that has that level of sway, but, they're owned by Microsoft now. And they put Call of Duty on every console, so it doesn't really matter. I don't even think Activision has that ability. It's really only the major hardware manufacturers that have that ability. Because I'm trying to think, what purely game developer company studio out there can drive the direction of the entire industry with their governing philosophy. You might say From Software, maybe. Even that might be giving them a little bit of credit. They definitely created like a subgenre. They created a popular subgenre with the whole Souls-like thing. And there's definitely a whole fucking feeder industry beneath it. I don't know if I would say that really changed how the industry as a whole operates, though. Like, Sega changed the industry, like Nintendo changed the industry just by virtue of releasing the Nintendo at a time when the game industry was, going through a crash, and console gaming was like nothing. Between the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, they definitely changed the industry. Sega changed the industry by being a counterculture sort of revolutionary versus Nintendo at that time, and like creating this whole brand image around that. They definitely made games more mature. They made it okay for games to be more mature, at least. Sony definitely, when the PlayStation came out, the PlayStation 1 is the reason why games became popular in the mainstream, honestly. Once all the rappers and, back then, I guess they weren't really called influencers, but the then influencers of the 90s started playing sports games on the PlayStation. It was game over for video games just being for dorks and nerds. So Sony definitely changed the direction of the industry with that one, and Nintendo again too with Mario 64. They showed the game industry how you make games in 3D. That's games that aren't first-person shooters, at least. How you make non-first-person shooter games in 3D, and that changed the direction of the industry. The Dreamcast kind of pinballed off of that a little bit, but it really was the first to like bring networking into it because it had a built-in modem right off the gate. You had Sega Net. You can just play games versus people online for no cost. That was awesome, playing NFL 2K or NBA 2K online, Fantasy Star Online. And it was cheap. It was cheap. And it had it sold itself as like, the future is now, in not like a cyberpunk or edgy kind of way, but more in like in a much softer, I guess, kind of a softer and more future friendly kind of almost utopia. I mean, it's called Dreamcast, almost utopian kind of vision of the future. And, it would have worked if the failures of the Saturn weren't too much to financially overcome. But I think they changed the direction too. Nintendo or Sega did with the Dreamcast. The PlayStation 2 definitely started emulating some of those Dreamcast conventions for sure. PlayStation 2 obviously was a big ordeal. I think it starts to fall off with PlayStation 3 for Sony. And Xbox 360, I mean, Xbox Live was massive. Xbox Live is really what picked up the reins from Sega Net, from the Dreamcast's online friendly offerings that were probably ahead of its time a little bit. Xbox Live was pretty goddamn incredible for all the indie titles that it offered and bringing in achievements, and because achievements weren't a thing before then. I remember when achievements first came out, I was like, who cares? Like who cares about achievements? Like this is dumb. Like, hey, you just jumped over 3 turtles, here's a little reward. I'm like, what? Why? Who cares? But no, it's a big thing. And now everybody has achievements. Even mobile games have achievements. So like the Xbox 360 was definitely an industry shifting convention. Steam has achievements. And by the time the 360 came out, Steam was like fucking 7, 8 years old. So it definitely impacted that. It starts to taper off around then, though. Like you don't get a whole lot. I don't think you get a whole lot of industry shifting. I mean, Nintendo is always attempting. I wouldn't say that the Switch shifted the industry in any reasonable manner. It got a lot of people talking. Or not the Switch, the Wii. The Wii got a lot of people talking, you know, the controller and all of that, and Wii Sports was a hell of a lot of fun, but it didn't change anything. It didn't force anybody to rethink how to develop games or how to market games. So the Wii was fine, but it was just kind of an anomaly. And I kind of view the GameCube that same way too. The Wii U, honestly, kind of like the Dreamcast, a little ahead of its time. It had a little bit of that Switch in it, but it also had a lot of that Sega Saturn in it. So I guess the less said about the Wii U, the better. It didn't force really anyone to do anything, but the Switch did. The Switch definitely changed some attitudes about, you know, mobile gaming, and I think played a huge role in influencing the Steam Deck. So they may have whiffed a little bit on the GameCube and, you know, a little bit on the Wii and the Wii U, but they hit it out of the park with the Switch. I think I think you're going to see a lot of manufacturers who are still interested in developing hardware for gaming go in that direction. But PlayStation 4, no. PlayStation 5, no. Like Xbox One, no, not really. I guess maybe it's a little bit difficult. I don't know if it's difficult or if there's just not the right vision in place. I don't think this guy has a good vision for where he wants to take Sega. If he thinks that getting the Angry Bird guys to make a Sonic game on mobile is a winner, I don't think this guy has it. But I don't know. Maybe things would change if they put out hardware again. Maybe being on the hook for selling a bunch of expensive hardware to people that might not necessarily be receptive to it. Maybe that might put the heat on them to be a little bit more riskier, be a little bit more innovative, and maybe even do so in a capacity that requires leaning on some older IP. You know, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. If Sega put out new hardware, I would buy it. I just hooked my Dreamcast up to our phone line. You have a phone line? We didn't even have internet, and it worked and never charged us. Oh, you mean back then, back in the day? Yeah, it just had like was it a 56K? I guess it had a 56K modem attached. You just plug that bitch right in. Congrats, Wisp. What? I passed inspection today. Oh, okay, cool. Hey, congratulations, Wisp. Night City. You think a corpo is gone, but they never truly stay gone. I love my 360 and my PS3. Me too. 100% games. 360 did that. Achievements were meant for us squirrel brain completionists. Yeah, I'm not a completionist, so I never cared about achievements. But I understand why people do. Wii was wildly popular, though. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it wasn't successful. It was definitely popular and a success, but it didn't shift the industry. Like, people wanted to know if motion controls were going to become the new thing. Like, and it wasn't just the Switch or the Wii U. I keep saying Switch when I mean Wii. And not even Wii U. It wasn't just the Wii. The very first iteration of the PlayStation 3 controller, if you remember, had the motion controls because they launched Warhawk. They launched Warhawk with their, what was it called? The 6-axis controller or something like that. And you can control your plane by doing this kind of shit. People wanted to know if motion controls were going to be the future of gaming, but no, not so much. So the Wii was popular, but it didn't really change the industry. It didn't really shift the industry. in my opinion. I mean, maybe you could come up with an example where it did, but I don't think anything was really revolutionized for the long term by the Wii. I hacked my Wii, rented games, and just copied them to an HDD I had attached to it, lol. I think the Wii and the DS were prototypes for what the Switch was intended to be. Absolutely, Taco. That's 100% correct. The DS, honestly, and you mentioned a very interesting thing here, because in all of that time where, in my view, Nintendo was kind of missing the mark with the GameCube and missing the mark a little bit, but they're still popular, but not really revolutionizing anything. Or not really revolutionizing, that's not the right word. They weren't influencing, I guess, the direction of the industry with the Wii, but they did well with it, but they definitely missed the mark with the Wii U. In the backdrop of all of that, or really I should say all of that was in the backdrop of the Game Boy Advance selling like gangbusters and the DS selling like gangbusters, the Game Boy Advance SP. Oh my god, the Game Boy Advance SP was one of the most hotly sought after fucking things in the world when that thing dropped, and it was cool. I liked it. The Game Boy Advance was cool, but the Game Boy Advance SP was awesome. I like that thing. And that's, I think, where Nintendo was doing, and they were alone in that space, really. Up until like smartphones, there really wasn't any kind of real competition in the mobile gaming department. Like Sega got out of that shit, and for a while Sony was doing the PSP, but that couldn't compete with what Nintendo was putting out for the Game Boy Advance, Advanced SP, the DS, the 3DS. Like that stuff was just Nintendo printing money at will. They were printing money at will with those things. And yeah, you're right. To a degree, a lot of that influenced, of course, the Switch, which in turn helped influence a lot of other things. And probably even, honestly, to a certain degree, with the DS, probably influenced a lot of smartphone games. So yeah, even though their consoles may not have been industry shifting, their handheld stuff certainly was. So yeah, good on mentioning that, because that's a completely other component that often gets overlooked. It was 56K, yeah. Oh man, hot take, I really don't miss DualShock 4 controllers. What's the difference between the DualShock 4 and literally any other DualShock? They all feel the same to me. They all look the same. Wait, DualShock 4? Yeah, they all are the same controller, aren't they? Or was that the one that was more like a boomerang? I don't think I ever used the boom. Did that even ever come out? I don't know if they ever released that boomerang controller. Yeah, that was supposed to be the PlayStation 3 controller. I don't mind. I actually like the DualShock series of controllers. If only for the fact that they were made exclusive. They almost made exclusively for Ape Escape. And then every other game started to use them. And then it was like, hey, this is actually a great way to navigate in 3D space. Sitting there shaking and turning my controller. Wait, what? Sitting there shaking and turning my controller like a moron. I don't miss motion controls whatsoever, and I'm glad it didn't really take off. Yeah, that's what I was saying about the Wii. It was a neat idea in concept. And in execution in some of those titles, it was fun. Like Wii Sports is always going to be one of the greatest releases ever. And whenever I have the chance to play it, I'll play it. But, what was that game? Red Steel? That first-person shooter where you have like a sword and a gun? Spending all your time doing this, that kind of sucks. And that kind of sucks. Like, it's fun for a little while. I remember playing one of those Zelda titles. I can't remember which one. And I'm like waggling the remote, trying to get Link to like, I was trying to get him to do a spin attack or something. And I was just like, this would be so much easier if I could just use the controller to like press a button to get him to do the thing I want. Why do I got to sit here and like do this shit? Like, it was more cumbersome than it needed to be, I think. I wasn't ever really a fan of Rumble. It depends on how it was used, honestly. My cousin had one of the motion camera things for her Xbox 360. That was kind of like an early VR prototype without the VR. Yeah, that's AR. That's augmented reality. Sony had the PlayStation Eye. I forget what Microsoft called theirs, but yeah, that's another thing where people were kind of waiting to see if that was going to revolutionize gaming, the industry at some degree. But it also just turned into like a little, okay, that's a neat little party trick. And it just never really did anything beyond like some workout games. Twilight Princess, maybe? It was the first one on the Wii with the motion, I think. I think Skyward Sword was... I think it may have been Skyward Sword. Or something Swords. Yeah, I think it was Skyward Sword. Connect. Yeah, that's what it was called. The Connect. It had a cool Fable game that was interesting, but it never really set. I think the Xbox One game with... Wait, what? I think the Xbox One's game with them, but then that was it. Fable is underrated. I'll have to take your word for it. I haven't played it. I should. Now I'm going to start thinking about Sega getting back into the hardware business. That would be cool. I would like to see that. It's never going to happen, though. I don't know if we'll ever see anybody else attempt to make hardware ever again. I think you're going to see Microsoft fail. You're going to see Sony probably fail at some point. And it's just going to be Nintendo. Just wait for the new Fable next year.
Yeah, I think that's... I don't know. I think Sega is a little rock and roll still.
Yeah. I hope so.
I think games, you know,
I don't think
whether
so.
it's Metaphor or even Sonic has a certain punky vibe.
I mean, even what's funny is Angry Bird having that kind of attitude too. So that's why one of the reasons why we asked them to join our group.
Yeah, it's a good fit. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sam. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I left this with less confidence that this guy is going to revitalize Sega's image. And that's not to say that I think he's bad at his job or anything. I just think he has a much different vision than what I would have liked to have heard. Could be wrong, but I don't know, man. I'd like to see Sega jump into handhelds, but that's a market that's market I've been enjoying. They could do that. That they could do that. They could do handhelds if they wanted to. But by their reasoning, I mean, he's talking about mobile though, because you can make a mobile game and not be on the hook for having to manufacture hardware that people might not buy. Like, a lot of people already have an iPhone, so why not just release a game on an iPhone or an Android? Why reinvent the wheel? I've been predicting a game industry crash for a few years. Everybody has been saying that. I understand why, but I think that there is too much momentum underneath. There's too much momentum underneath like the AAA studios to allow a crash to occur. There's too much of an undercurrent of people like me and you out there, you who go on Steam and buy indie titles and wait for Steam sales and pick up games you otherwise probably wouldn't have bought if it wasn't like 50-60% off. You know, and that's gonna that there and that doesn't mean that there aren't gonna be crash like indicators. Microsoft firing 9,000 people is a crash like indicator, you know, right after all of these other studios have been, you know, shut down. I would say that's a crash like indicator, but is that going to be enough to really facilitate a crash in the industry? I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, the real question is in the next 2 or 3 years, how broke are people going to get? I mean, that's video games are still a very important escape from the drudgeries of day-to-day life, and we live in a world now, unlike when the first video game crash occurred in the early 80s, before the internet, before social media, back when people who wanted to connect with people had to do so face to face. You know, we live in a much more fragmented society now. We live in a world where everybody has their own little universe that exists specifically for them in their phone, and they could do whatever they want within that realm. But sometimes that's going to require, you know, various forms of entertainment that you bring into that sphere. You know, when you get bored or lonely or whatever, instead of grabbing your jacket and heading out to the nightclub, you buy a game on Steam. You hop on to Marvel Rivals and see who on your friend list is playing Marvel Rivals. You play Marvel Rivals with them, or you play Eve. You play Eve with your friends, or any other. You watch dipshits like me jump on Twitch and play Suikoden for the 200th time. Now, that's always. I think that new reality, that new ecosystem, is enough to buttress the game industry from suffering from a complete collapse. There'll probably be many collapses here or there, little micro crashes here or there, but I don't think it's going to be anything like what happened in the early 80s. I think there is some space. Most handheld games are either using a Switch, Steam Deck, or an off-brand Steam Deck or emulated devices. Maybe, but remember, people like a dichotomy. They don't necessarily like a menage a trois. You know, it's Pepsi or Coke. It's not Pepsi, Coke, or RC Cola. You know, it's McDonald's or Burger King. It's not McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's. even though Wendy's and RC Cola exist and people like them and go to them, like, it's the one or the other. It's the binary. It's the on-off switch that people like. So it's hard for me to envision, even though, and like even in the console space, like it was always like Sega and Nintendo until Sony muscled in, and then when Sony muscled in, like that's when Sega got muscled out. And it became Sega or not Sega, it became Sony and Nintendo. And then Microsoft muscled their way in, and the only reason why they have been allowed to stay around for as long as they have is because it's Microsoft. They're being floated by a fucking monopoly. So if they didn't have that, you know, OS monopoly to float them, they probably would have been muscled out by Sony and Nintendo a long time ago. But I mean, and they might still be, like, you see what's been happening with them. They might still be, you know, on the way outs in the console market, despite that. So, you know, it's a dichotomy that people seem to enjoy. I think a crash is inevitable, but it may not be what we perceive to be a crash, or it will be a drawn out process. Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like it'll be like little micro crashes or mini collapses here and there, like within certain sectors. Like right now, the AAA space is experiencing it. The AAA space is getting hit hard, but who knows? It might be indie developers. Once fully integrated AI pipelines become a thing, you might start seeing smaller studios lay people off so that they can rely more on AI pipelines to do their things. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I think it's more likely individual publishers or companies crash. Yeah. More layoffs, budget cuts, etc. I mean, that's coming. That's coming. So the degree of impact that it has industry-wide, TBD, but we're all going to find out. Oh man, I'm actually really tired right now.
Haunted Taco 12 said nail a game and get rewarded with losing your livelihood.
Developers like the team behind Hi-Fi Rush, that kind of breaks my heart. Nail a game and get rewarded with losing your livelihood. That's pretty much every major studio at this point. Like, the metric for success is impossibly high. So you're going to see a lot more of that, I feel. But, you know, we can talk about that in a future time because I feel my eyes getting heavy. So I'm going to call it for the night. But thank you, everybody, for stopping by and hanging out. I appreciate it. Oh, man. The fatigue really hit me.
Said night all. Haunted
Really
Taco
hit me.
12 said Yolda 6th Suki.
You know, I don't know where that Suki is. I gotta go find that girl. I'm gonna go do that.
Street Corner Becky said Yolda 6 Galbi.
I know where Galbi is. She's in the cat tree.
Haunted Taco 12 said Yolda 6 Yarn Love. Haunted _ Wisp said have a good night all.
Hey, thanks for hanging out. You have a good night too. I'll probably be back tomorrow, so hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, but if not, I'll see you when I see you. Take it easy.
Haunted _ Wisp said don't have a good night.